Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
That I couldn't really ignore. I've had a few experiences throughout my life, and the last experience that I just had just opened my eyes up to other possibilities as well. And granted, I've never seen myself dating or like being with a woman seriously. The young lady that I was with, she can see that. She's like, I thought, we may be married. But for me, it's just like, I don't see.
All right, to catch you up, we have Devin and Brittany. And Devin just disclosed and cried a bit about how he was going through some physical difficulties in relation to playing basketball. And that was a warm moment. She was crying because of empathy with him. And then she says, okay, well, if we're getting deeper, I want to share something with you. And I think what she's disclosing is that she's bisexual.
But for me, it's just like, I don't see what you see, girl, And she's like, you're an awesome person. Like, I know that I can be with you. And I'm like, I know that you're an awesome person, but I don't know if that's me marrying a female. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, my vision of myself being married with a man, this is what I envision my life being.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't expect her to word it that way, but the way she's wording it, and I don't know, we'll hear more from her, and maybe I'll never know the answer to this, but the way she worded it was she's saying, I envisioned my life in a heterosexual long-term relationship, in a heterosexual marriage. I was with this woman, and she was saying she wanted to be married. And I said to her, I never envisioned this. This isn't what I envisioned. Yeah, because of oppression and heteronormity and bigotry, that's in all of us. You can't avoid it. It's everywhere. Even if your family was cool with it, which often families aren't, you're still going to absorb the vibe of society. It's changing, right? And it depends on your cultural pocket, but it's hard to avoid the broader societal view. So, yeah, of course, it wouldn't necessarily be what you envision. Now, what if I were Devin, I would be really wanting to know is, okay, it's not how you envision, it's not what you saw, but what do you want? Do you know? Do you know what you want? Forget about your future vision, but if that was off the table, would you have contemplated marrying that woman that wanted to marry you? And or would you marry a guy? Would you want to in your bones? Now, maybe for her, she doesn't know yet because she sounds like in this previous relationship with a woman, she's discovering new things. There's new questions. Now, maybe she's answered them, but I guess I was kind of hoping that she was, because what she was leading up to, I thought she was going to say that she's bisexual and either is fine and she knows that about herself. And I just want to tell you that because I'm really into you and that might come up one day, but I don't want you to be threatened by anything. I'm not confused. I know I want to be with people of any gender, including people like you. But that's not exactly what she's saying. Maybe she will say it.
This is what I want. So
she was saying she was ready to be with you, but you didn't see it.
Exactly.
You had the one experience?
I've had a few experiences.
Now, maybe by envision, what she is saying and meaning and feeling is that it's not what she wants. And she knows that in, her inner world, not influenced from the outside or influenced by her vision of the future, but it's not what she wants. That's how we tend to talk about sexual orientation. It's like, regardless of what's going on outside, it's like, what do we want?
Never have I felt like I want to marry or be with any,
You don't see.
Okay, so that's more in line with that. And that is, if I were Devin, I would be. But he seems to be, well, I don't know. I don't know how he's feeling. I don't know what's going on.
I love and accept them for who they are, and I love their partners. But for me, and what I envision my life to be, that's not necessarily what I want,
Mm. Do you feel like you still have interest in women or no?
I think that people are beautiful altogether, right?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with that question that he has because I would assume that she does have attraction to women in the same way that if she were heterosexual, she finds men in general attractive, right? So what does that have to do with anything? Devin seems like a stand-up guy, but this question, maybe he just doesn't know, or maybe I'm interpreting that question wrong, but that was a stereotype or an assumption or bigotry element that if someone were to have had those past experiences, then that meant that they would never be happy with you, right? And that can be due to bigotry or stereotype or misunderstanding or worry, paranoia, preoccupied attachment, right? And, those are conversations to have. But I would assume what she is saying is that she's bisexual, but, and people will say this, I have friends and clients that will say this, that although they're bisexual, they absolutely know that it's one of the genders they want to marry. Whereas for some people, it doesn't matter what the gender is. They would have sex and or pursue a long-term relationship with anybody. But for some people, they love to have sex and maybe even long-term relationships. But when it comes to family and long-term, then there's one particular gender that they're interested in. So it kind of sounds like that's what she's saying.
It's really just about the person that I connect with and the person that I'm with and trust to love me through it all, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just feel like if you have the attraction to the woman, I don't know if you're saying that you're not interested anymore. I don't know if is that how you're feeling? Like you're not interested in women anymore, or do you feel like you still are?
Uh-oh. Yeah. He seems to be hung up on that. Now, maybe he's just having a conversation, but he seems to either be exhibiting that misunderstanding or he's threatened by it. He's thinking, I don't want to move forward if you still have attraction to women. That again, doesn't make any sense. Because if she were heterosexual, would you say, I don't want to be with you if you still have attraction to men in general, It's an absurd question. And that's typically not how sexual orientation works, right? It's not like, oh, I've grown out of my attraction to women. She's saying, and it's interesting, she said something a little earlier that contradicts what I was saying, that I thought I was hearing or assuming. She was saying that she could marry anyone of any gender. So it sounds like, well, it sounds different than what she was saying earlier, which is fine. So I'm a little worried about him if he's a safe, if he's if they end up together, then maybe it's just a matter of explaining things, and maybe he's just new to it. Yeah.
No, I feel like the person that I'm with is the person that I'm
Right.
with. I've always been monogamous, right?
Okay,
So whoever
yeah.
I'm with, that's who I'm with. That's
Right.
just what it is,
It makes me feel better knowing that if you're with me, you're just going to be with me. Mm-hmm. Well, I do appreciate you for being able to be transparent and speak those things to me.
Yeah, and I applaud her as well. And another thing that I will applaud is, I guess, society for having changed enough so that an individual like her can not only explore that, but also disclose it on a reality TV show with confidence. This would not have happened. I mean, I don't know about her in particular, but these kinds of expressions and of who we are, there was so much bigotry and so much hatred and sometimes literal murder of individuals that people could never talk about this. So I'm glad for us as a society that we're moving down the road and that she was able to say that with confidence. It almost kind of looks like she's a little disappointed in his response. I mean, it's hard to know exactly the perfect response, but his questions aren't encouraging. But he did hear her when she clarified, which I'm glad she cut to the chase and said, well, if I'm in a relationship, then I'm in a monogamous relationship. So if I was in a relationship with you, I'm not going to get together with anyone, of any gender. So if I happen to have a general attraction or openness to women, that isn't a compulsion, you understand? I mean, another part of it, and I have no idea, but I don't want to accuse Devin of anything because I have no idea. But for some men in particular, they will be threatened by that. They will feel like, well, what if I can't compete with women? You know, what if they get something different sexually from women? And the answer is they probably do, but that doesn't mean that it's all a lie and that she isn't genuinely interested in pursuing a relationship long term. So it's an interesting conversation. Have we seen, I mean, for season 1, there was Carlton. He didn't come out until The Getaway. And that was an interesting conversation because Diamond at first was upset. What she was saying she was upset, which is completely justified, is you withheld this from me in the pods. Why didn't you tell me before? You know, you're telling me this after we're engaged? Like, that's not fair. The question I had, and I don't want to accuse Diamond of anything in season 1, was if she were told in the pods, how would she have reacted? Would she have rejected him or not? Because we don't know. It's possible. I don't want to cast aspersions where there's no evidence because there's that, but I do wonder. I'm guessing she wouldn't have. But anyway, so it's good that people are disclosing these things early in the pods because, you know, for some people that might be really important. I would say something like this. That's a good question. It's a good question. I asked the question in my head and then verbally said, "That's a good question, Kirk." And the question is, what is the responsibility? Because there's a lot of things that are not disclosed in the pods. You know, this would be one sort of topic, but there's a lot of things in one's history that are notable and interesting, right? How many people you've had sex with, or every detail of every relationship you've been in, or the kind of fantasies that you have, or so, I don't know. There's just certain things that I think, even if you're engaged, I think it's okay to, as long as it's not going to negatively impact, right? Which arguably this wouldn't necessarily negatively impact, right? It would just be a detail about her history. It could be interpreted as a threat, but it wouldn't be, and he is now realizing that, I guess.
It's a lot for me to process because I think it's just because I've never been with someone that has been with the same sex. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't change how I feel for you as a person, and that I think that you're an amazing person. I don't know if that matters. It's definitely something to think about.
Okay. So I don't know where he's coming from. I'm just looking at my notes here, and there's nothing informing me. It's not the ideal response from him. I mean, I suppose the ideal response would be, okay, interesting. Both of us have pasts. Totally cool. And thanks for telling me. And you're a brave person. So that I don't know if that's I guess that would be my ideal. But it is encouraging that he's saying you're still an amazing person, doesn't change anything, and he's saying, you know, I have a lot to process. Maybe that's just evidence that he's never been in a situation like that, or he doesn't have any bisexual friends. I don't know. Or he's been told things, propaganda and dogma and religious things and bigotry that is bubbling up for him, and he will eventually get there. Either way, whether he ends up with Brittany or not, will he be able to move forward so that he can not react to people, you know, in this way? Not, there's no overt judgment, but saying I have a lot to process, it implies, oof, this is like, I don't know, this is kind of a big deal. And when just to me, it's just someone's history, right? It's an interesting detail about their life. Like, I don't know, they lived abroad for a few years. It's just like, oh, it's probably interesting, you know? So on one hand, I'm like, well, I don't know where he comes from in terms of his cultural pocket, and maybe this is a huge departure forward progressively, so kudos to him, and he'll continue going down that road. Or Is it not that? And I don't know. And then on the other hand, I just think it's 2025. I mean, I guess it's 2024 here, but you haven't faced that question in your mind, or you're still. But of course, in my circle in Seattle, but not only just Seattle, but my circle that I've been in my whole life, really, we wrestled with those questions when we were kids, I guess, to some extent. So I can't expect everyone to have been given the opportunity. I don't know.
For sure.
For me,
I've never said some of these words to anyone ever in my life. I'm not gonna lie, it would have been very comforting to hear on your side, like, oh, that don't matter. Like, oh, I don't care. But at the same time, I have to understand and respect your perspective.
Right. I'm not saying.
Yeah, I was wondering how she was reacting. I suspected that was what she was looking for based on her nonverbal, but I didn't know because I could see her thinking, well, I usually get bad reactions from people, but it sounds like she runs in a circle where that's not the case. So I could see her starting to question whether or not because it could be the tip of the iceberg. But I don't know, of the less ideal responses, his is definitely one of the better ones.
Saying that it's going to be something where I'm like, you know what? Nope. Like I wasn't ready to hear what I heard.
Right.
So I'm just processing it and trying to really understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you forgetting the
Trying to process, and I don't know. I mean, God bless him, but I trying to process what she's saying. She's saying that she's dated people in the past, and they weren't all dudes. Like that's all she's saying. What does it say? Nothing. I think given the questions she was asking, I think he is still wondering if they were to get involved with each other, that she would leave him for a woman. And there's no evidence of that. I was wondering that by the way she was wording in the beginning. She was talking about envision, but sprinkled in there in her discussion, she was like, it's just, eventually she was saying regarding gender, I don't care who I marry, it's who I connect with. So she's connecting with him. Yeah. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.